I took a moment to look at myself in the rearview mirror as I drove home from work. The 34-year-old man stared back at me. It was a blank face, with empty eyes perched above dark shadows. A few scars dotted the cheeks, reminders of a childhood filled with acne, poor hygiene, and junk food. The eyes themselves were empty, tired, uncaring, and stony. I tore my gaze away from the mirror and looked forward at the road. A few cars passed by and I stepped on the gas a little. I don't know why I bothered. The faster I got home just meant the faster I went to sleep, and thus, the faster tomorrow began. I glanced up at the signs. Another 5 miles and I'd be at my exit. My phone rung in the cup holder next to me. I glanced down. Mother. It rung once, twice, 3 times. On the 5th, I picked it up and raised it to my ear. Yeah? The other end was silent. Maybe there was a sniffle on her end. I miss you, she said. I ground my teeth a little. I'm busy. Another moment of silence. This time I heard the sniffle for real. I know, I entered the final stretch. Mom took a deep breath. Would you like to get dinner with me Saturday? There's this lovely seafood. I have work. I cut her off. Not on Saturday, she whispered. I didn't respond. My exit approached. I reached a finger for the turn signal but didn't flick it. My exit drifted by as I continued along the highway. I love you. I really do, Mom said softly. I heard the tears come and my eyes stayed dry. I stared at the phone in my hand. Okay. I ended the call. The road continued on and the number of cars dissipated as I left the city. The phone rung again, but this time I didn't even look at who it was. It went quiet. No voicemail. I glanced back up at my reflection. Same emptiness. When did I stop caring? It's just me on the road now. The sun had fully set and it was growing dark. I'd left the city and it was just woods now. I glanced back into the back seat, where a bottle rested in the dark. Screw it. I pulled over onto the shoulder and put the car into park. I stepped out of the car and sighed. I was completely alone. No cars, no lights, just me. I reached into the back seat and pulled out the bottle before bringing it to my lips. Back in college, I used to drink for fun. Now I didn't know why. I had a couple of swallows and then put the bottle down. I leaned against the hood of my car and shook my head. After a moment, I glanced up at the woods and felt a ghost of a smile. As a kid, I used to love running through the trees with childhood friends, playing, building tree houses. They always had an air of mystery that piqued our curiosity of the forest. I loved it, but that was a long time ago. I took a step away from my car and towards the tree line. My fancy business loafer squelched in some mud and I sighed as my right foot felt wet. I gazed into the tree line. There was a trail running through it. I glanced over and saw the entrance. I looked back at my car and shrugged. All right. I reached in and ignored the missed calls on the phone. I tossed the phone back into the seat, grabbed the keys, and locked the car up after grabbing a flashlight in the back. The road was still deserted. I walked to the entrance of the trail and started on it. It was so quiet, only the sound of the leaves rustling in the wind. With the sun having set, the last scraps of light were quickly leaving and I would soon be in darkness. I followed the trail deeper into the woods, staring off into the trees, searching for nothing. 10 minutes in and it was now quite dark. I clicked on the flashlight and shined a narrow beam in front of me. I looked around in the darkness. There was a man behind me. I froze in my tracks and squinted in the darkness of the trail behind me. Yes, about 100 feet back, the outline of a man walked the trail behind me. A pang of fear flooded in my chest. What are the odds someone else would be on this random trail off the side of the highway? He didn't have a flashlight either, he was just walking in the woods at night without any vision. My hand holding the flashlight shook. I wanted to shine the light on him. I started to raise the beam towards him. He looked directly at me. The beam froze. Did he really just look at me? Or was the darkness playing tricks on me? The beam was almost on him, but I couldn't bring myself to shine it on his figure. He raised his arm and extended a hand. "Oh my God," I exclaimed. I pulled the light away from him and started walking quickly away. This man wanted to hurt me. I was sure of it. I quickened my pace, and out of the corner of my eye I saw that he did too. He was about 100 feet away now. I still couldn't make out any defining features. All I saw was a solid black shadow walking behind me. I shined my flashlight forward on the trail, deep in thought. I had to turn around and get back to my car, but how? He was behind me, so I'd have to pass him, which wasn't going to happen. I looked forward on the trail, which winded deeper and deeper into the woods, further from the road and any civilization. I was quite literally walking exactly where he wanted me. This was a trap. I stole another glance behind me and saw that he was about 75 feet away now. It was still too dark to make out anything defining on him, but I could tell that he was massive, very tall and thin, like a walking tree. I gasped in panic. This was very bad. I had nothing to defend myself with aside from my fists, and this shadowy man was huge. I wanted to run so bad, but knew that if I did, he would likely be upon me in seconds. I picked up the pace as fast as I dared, and the final scrap of light disappeared, plunging us both into pure darkness. He was about 50 feet behind me. I couldn't hear any footsteps, but I did hear a muffled moan, like someone screaming with their mouth closed. I looked forward and my heart jumped. The trail had ended. It just ended right in the middle of the woods. A solitary tree stared back at me where the trail terminated. Jesus Christ. I glanced back and he was only 40 feet away now. I had to do something. "Stay away from me," I shouted. I planted my feet and turned around. I grasped the flashlight in my hands and shined it directly at him. He didn't have a face. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just smooth skin over facial bones. He moaned again, his muffled scream. Oh my God! I tore off running to the woods in horror. I ran as hard as I could, desperate to get away from the monster. My loafers pounded into the mud and one shoe tore right off my foot. I tripped, and the flashlight went flying into the darkness, shattering on a rock. I scrambled to my feet and kept running blindly into the woods. Twigs and branches whipped my face, and I held my arms up to shield myself, squinting madly to try to see anything in the oppressive darkness. He was behind me. I could hear his moaning as he chased after me. I willed myself to run harder, faster. I lost the other shoe and cried out in pain as the sole of my left foot was cut on a rock. I tried again and banged my left knee on a log before tumbling into wet mud. The muffled moans grew louder as he approached me. I pushed my hands into the mud and managed to get up. Staggering, I headed further into the woods, trying to find the trail. Oh God, please. My lungs burned and I knew I was bleeding from the gash in my knee. My vision started to shrink as I couldn't get enough air in. I was about to pass out. I fell again and desperately tried to rise. I managed to hobble to my feet one last time. I took a step and then collapsed onto the forest floor. Please, I begged. I turned onto my back to face the monster. I was alone. I looked around, gasping for breath, but couldn't see anything in the darkness. I didn't hear anything either. No moans. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw an old tree fort. Something a couple kids must have put together a long time ago. It was just a bunch of 2x4s nailed together to form a platform. I slowly got to my feet and limped to the fort. With my good leg, I climbed the little ladder and heaved myself onto the elevated wood floor of the fort. Exhausted, I passed out. We used to run through woods like these, playing hide and seek and building tree forts. Life was full of adventure, intrigue, and fun. As I grew up, though, the wonder of life seemed to disappear. My heart grew cold to the world. I looked in the mirror and didn't even know who I was anymore. What happened to that little happy kid? Why did I do this to myself? Was it rage at the world or rage at me? My eyelids creaked open. It was dawn. The monster was in the fort with me. He was lying on his side, whimpering. I looked at his face, and it was my face. It was wrought with sadness, and tears spilled down his cheeks. He reached out his hand, offering me to take it. I looked into his eyes that were overcome with emotion. I stared at his hand. Slowly, I rose to my feet and made for the little ladder. The monster lowered his hand. I left him in that tree fort. The trail was visible in the daylight, and I quickly made my way back to the car. I got into the driver's seat and checked my phone. More missed calls from my mother. I tossed the phone to the back seat. Popping open the glove compartment, I dug out a first aid kit and wrapped my knee and foot. Then, I started the car up and headed back in the direction of the city. Work was starting soon. As the road slowly began to fill up with traffic, I glanced up at the rearview mirror. I saw a man with no face.